Happy Mother's Day. She's lazy. She had a run today. Hey everybody, I'm back. I'm Karen Margulis. This is Sunday Studio, and I want to wish everyone out there a happy Mother's Day. And I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I'm doing what I love to do on Mother's Day. I got to do whatever I wanted, and I chose to go to the thrift store this morning, and I got some good art books, which I'll share on my blog. And now I'm having some time to paint in the studio before we have dinner, so I thought I would invite you to join in and watch if you're there out there, and I welcome you if you are. I haven't been home much lately, so I haven't been doing these studio live demos. I had a couple of workshops. We had a big trip, a couple of workshops, and last weekend was the wedding. Our daughter got married, and we had a wonderful weekend. And now it's back to work, and by work I mean I've got a lot of things going on. So show the studio. I'm not embarrassed. It's a total disaster area, but everything is being staged for IAPS. So I'm doing 2 presentations, a demo and a talk about blogging, and I've got a lot of preparation because I want to make these a really fantastic presentations. So if you're coming to IAPS, I hope you'll come to my sessions because it's going to be really great. I'm getting ready for that anyway. So I'm taking a break from that today, though, for Mother's Day, and I'm going to do a little wildflower painting, or actually a big one. It's 12 by 24. Yes, 12 by 24. And I've already done the underpainting so that it could dry, and I'll explain what I'm doing. First of all, let me just show you. This is the reference photo. So this is just a patch of thistle. And I've never really painted thistles before, so they may be thistles, but they may turn out to be something else. We'll see how it goes. But what I did was started the underpainting using, where are they? Some Derwent Inktense sticks. So they look like new pastels, but they're really a different material. And when you wet them, I used rubbing alcohol. You can see that it made some really interesting drips, which hopefully will help create that feeling of grassiness. And so I like them because they're very, very intense. They're, as their name implies, and so they're a lot of fun to use for underpaintings. What? Show them again. Well, I only have a few. I'm not fortunate enough to have the whole box. I think they come in a set of 24 or maybe even 48 Derwent Inktense sticks. And so you put them on, and they're kind of like, they're kind of like crayon. They feel waxy, but as soon as you wet them, they just explode into color. So they're really fun. And a full set is on my wish list for sure. So I've already done that. It's dry now, so I'm ready to go ahead and paint. And what I decided to do today is just instead of choosing out my palette like I usually do, sometimes I like to just challenge myself to use a particular set and say, okay, make this work. No matter what you do, you're going to make it work. So I decided to take out my very favorite Terry Ludwig set of Landscape Richard McKinley selection. So I'm going to only use this set. I will need to pull out a few more purples and pinks maybe for the flowers, and I'll get to that. But I'm going to do my best to just use these for the most part, for the majority of the painting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is come into the painting. You can see that I've made some circles, and those are where some of the flowers are going to be, I think. And then these big empty areas are where some of these really white puffy clouds will be. So I didn't want to cover up I just thought I would start with lighter paper. So the first thing that I'm going to do is reinforce the dark areas. And there's not really any dark area in this grassy part. So I've invented a kind of dark lead-in to go back into the distance. If I didn't do that, then the flowers kind of would be just hanging there in space. So I want to give them something to hold on to. So what am I going to use to reinforce the dark areas? Well, I think I'll start with, this is a little too dark. Let's start with this blue. And I really like some of these drips that have happened, so I want to be careful that I'm not going to cover it all up. So I'm going to use a very, very, very light touch. So I'm just using the side of the pastel and kind of letting it glide over so that some of those drips and interesting things that have happened will be able to show through. So I'm going to just pull this dark down in here, and then we have some dark kind of shrubs that are in the distance, and I'm going to be pulling the grass over these shrubs, but I'm going to go ahead and put them in right now. And I'm going to cover up where the flowers are going to go. That was just so that I could kind of get a feeling for how I might want them. Alright, so that's one layer of dark, and so I think I'll add, what else can I add? What is this one? I like that one. That's a purple. It's very similar value to the blue that I put down. So that just gives it a little bit more interest in the dark areas. I don't have to put it exactly everywhere. And then how about some dark green? So I have a dark, and I'm just pulling right from this set. So kind of makes it, it's a challenge, but it also makes it easy because you have to make these colors work. So it's a fun challenge every once in a while. I'll just take the set out and say, okay, see what you can do with just this set. Or mostly this set, because I will be using some other colors. Alright, so now I've got all my darks in place. So then what I want to do is go ahead and address the light areas of the painting, and that's going to be the sky. So we have a nice beautiful blue sky. So I'm going to start with the darkest blue that I want to appear in my sky. And I'm going to pull it down a little bit further into the painting than I want it to be. And I want it to get a little bit lighter as I go more down towards the horizon. So I'm just going to take the next value of blue and pull it up into the darker blue. Pull it down into my cloud shape. Oops, almost lost it. And then it's going to get even lighter and warmer as it goes to the horizon. It doesn't really show in my photo, but I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit so that I can have a little bit of depth going on in the sky. Pull it down to where the flowers are starting to grow, or they're going to come up over this area. Oops, that was supposed to be a cloud. And so that I don't have a parfait of blue, I'm pulling this colored up into the next color, and then I'm going to take the blue that was already there and pull it back down into the warm blue. So basically what I'm going to do is go back and forth with these 3 or 4 blue pastels that I used until they start to blend themselves. So by doing this, I don't have to use my fingers and blend and get it flat and dull looking. Alright, so I'll put these guys back. And let's see, I'm going to start some of the clouds just a little bit. I'm going to start with the shadows of the clouds, so I'm going to use a violet. And I see that I neglected to put in a cloud shape right in there, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in right now. And then I'm going to use a little bit of a peach. On top of the purple. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing my own grays for the clouds instead of just using white and gray. And a little bit of pale green. Let's see, what do I have in here? A little pale green. And let's see, a little bit of pale lavender. And I'm going to have purple in those flowers, so I want to have a little bit of purple somewhere up in the sky. So I'm using purple in the grays of my clouds. And so now I can get the clouds lighter. So I'm using a pale, I think this is like a very pale yellow. And I'm just putting it where the light part of the clouds will go. This particular scene has everything. It's got clouds, it's got sky, it's got flowers, it's got grass. And then we can define the clouds a little bit more by taking the blue and creating a few hard edges in a few places. Like that. And then take the light. I'm actually going to use this Diane Townsend light to get some wispies coming off of these clouds, because the clouds are not just big solid cotton balls. They have some soft and hard edges in them. Okay. Alright, so I've got my sky pretty much done. I might come back and adjust it a little bit more, but now what I'm going to do is work on these distant bushes, because I want them to be finished, because I'm going to be pulling the flowers up on top over them. So I want that they need to be completed before I can start with the flowers. So I've got a darker green. That's going to be a little bit too dark though. I need to push them back into the distance a little bit more. So I'm going over it with a lighter blue-green, a cooler color, so that I can get these to feel like they're back into the distance a little bit better. Sometimes you just have to make adjustments as you go along. Oops, I don't want to spill those. And it's always, I like to err on the side of being darker and bolder when I start off, and then I can always modify it and get it lighter, get it cooler, get it duller. It's just easier to start off darker and richer than to try to bring that back into the painting. Now I'm going to define some of the edges of this big stand of bushes or whatever. I think it's like low growing shrubs of some sort. Make the outline of it a little bit more interesting. Oh yeah, if there's questions, just write them in, or you're writing them in, and then when I come back, I'll look at your questions and I'll write in the answer. Because it's kind of hard to field questions and paint and talk at the same time. So it's easier if I sit down and at the end. So please, I love your questions. So just go ahead and type them in, and I'll be happy to answer them. All right, now what I'm going to do next is work on the grasses. So I usually like to put in what I call dirt before I put in the grasses. Now I already have some of this pink of the underpainting, so that is a good base instead of just starting right away with the greens. But I'm going to add to this with pastel. So I've got like a peachy pink pastel that I'm kind of going over lightly on some of these areas just to reinforce the what I call dirt color. There's also a lot of gold grasses in this particular scene, so I'm adding a gold into this what I call dirt area. This is what's underneath the grass. So I don't paint any blades of grass yet. I'm going to build up to that. I'm going to pull that right on top of this dark area. Now you can see what's starting to happen is the dark area is kind of getting disguised. It's getting covered up, but yet it's still there. It's underneath. And that's the really important part of this idea, is that if you don't put it in the very first layers, then it's really hard to get that nice dark shape in there at the end, because then it's like you're splitting hairs, and it never seems to work out as well that way. Alright, so now I've got the dirt in, and it's going to be time to put in more of the grasses. I want to start off in the distance. Now this is all grass. It's a low point of view, so we're looking up into the grass. So you really don't see what's behind it, but nonetheless, I'm still going to start with a lighter, cooler color in the distance. This will get covered up, but it just shows that there is some grass that's further back. So I pick a very pale, kind of dull green, very light, and you can see I'm starting to cover up the bushes, and that's by intention, because I only want them kind of peeking out. And something's bothering me. I'm going to fix it right now so I don't forget about it, but I don't like the shape of this like two Mickey Mouse ears almost. So I have to take the color that can be up in the cloud and just kind of give it a little bit of a haircut, make it a little bit more of an interesting shape. And you know what happens a lot of times when you do that is you make an adjustment and then you make the same adjustment on the other side, and before you know it, you have a duplicate of your problem area. So I want to make that a little bit taller. So that breaks it up just a little bit more. A lot of times if I see an issue as it happens, as it occurs, I take a minute and make that correction before I forget. So that's what I just did. Alright, now let's see. So I'm going to continue on with the grasses. I'm not worried about the flowers yet. Those are the final marks. Those are the decorations. They're small enough that I can easily put them in on top, even though I made circles where I want them to go. Let's see. Put a little bit of a darker green down here in the foreground area. Just repeating the dark shape that I already had down there. And add a nice warm sunny green to the mix. Over on this side as well. And let's see, what else do I have in this box? This is nice green. And notice I'm using the side of my pastel stick. I'm holding it by the side and I'm making big, broad marks. I'm not making little tiny nitpicky marks, but I'm making big, broad marks. Now I'm going to use this kind of pale, I don't even know what it is, it's dirty, kind of a buff color. And this is to represent those bits of dried grass that are in this mix. And these come up over here pretty tall. Okay. Now I'm going to put in some of the flowers before I get everything completely covered up. Now they're thistles and they're kind of a pinky purple, so I'm going to start off with a purple. And then I'll change the color a little bit more. So I'm not necessarily only putting them where they are in the photo. I'm trying to put them instead where I think they would work well. And sometimes the photo isn't always the best, to have the best arrangement. Because, you know, think about it, this photo is just one moment in time. The wind is blowing and, you know, just the way they're planted may not be in the very best arrangement. So I want to put them where I think would work the best. Now some of these, seems like I've got a lot going on, I know, but some of them are going to get covered up. And they're not really quite that purple. They're more pink, so now I'm going to go back over them with a pink. And the idea that I use the pink underpainting is to help bring the colors that are underneath and repeat them in these flowers so that everything is harmonious and connected. What else do I see in there? Some of them are even more brilliant, so I'm going to use a little bit of a darker, richer hot pink on some of them, not on all of them. And then also, I can see that they have a little bit of a bulb thing underneath. I don't know my flower terminology, but they're not just right on the stems. There's a little green bit that's underneath, so I'm going to add that onto some of them, not all of them. And now let's see, there are actually some Queen Anne's lace in this little seam, so I think it would be appropriate to add some of that in. But I think I need to start with, let's start with this little bit of a kind of a dull purple. Put some of these in, and then I'll lighten it. That might be too light. I don't want to go too light too quickly. I like to build up to those colors. And now these, the little Queen Anne's lace, are going to be a little bit of a different shape. So that's how we can tell that there's a variety of flowers in this little meadow, because I'm going to change the shape of the flowers as I paint them. Now I can add the lighter part on top of these. And really, you just kind of feel your way around this. There's no, at this stage, because I've already built up to it, at this stage it's just putting them in where you feel like they need to go. There's no, it's hard to explain actually. You feel like this area needs something, it's a little bit empty, or this has too many, but I try to get some sort of rhythm going to the way the flowers are. Now I'm going to make some flowers have a little bit more importance than others. So some of these that are right here in this middle section, I'm using a brighter pink, and I'm pressing very hard. So up until this point I had been pretty easy with my marks, especially in the grassy areas, but now I'm what I call shouting. I'm really pressing quite hard because I want these marks to show up a little bit better. What is this one? And again, some of these are going to get covered up. I'm just putting them in now, and then I can. Let's have one guy coming off the side of the page there. All right, let's see. A little bit more. These other grass, these gold, I'm putting more of the golden grasses on top. So I'm starting to bury some of these flowers under the grasses. We don't want to bury all of them, but we do need to bury some of them. All right, and now we can stand to have some stems. I wanted to get the dark green. I think I put it in here. Now we got to be careful when we do the stems, because we don't want them to look like we've got a bouquet of balloons. So I'm going to try to just make some broken lines. And these are all connected, some of these. And then they have their own, there's a couple of different stands, but there's several in each one. So it helps if you kind of look at your flowers and kind of get an idea of the way they're growing, and then it gives you a better idea of how you can put yours on, how you can arrange them and make them look like the particular flower you're painting. So I'm not going to put stems on all of them because, again, then it'll look like I've got a balloon bouquet of little dots. I'm going to put a few. Now I'm going to do one other thing, and I actually forgot. Could you get the can of the fixative over on the shelf? Sometimes what happens is the pastel gets on a little bit too thick, and then I can't get the texture that I want. You've seen this. I've used this just about every painting, and everyone always asks. It's Blair very low odor fixative, but it's not very low odor actually. And I'm going to spray it gently, and actually I like to have a little bit of dots. So, but if you don't press down right, this is what you don't want when you're spraying a painting and you want it to be nice and smooth. But you can do it for a special effect. So you just press down halfway on the nozzle, and you get these little wonderful little dots and dribbles. And to me, when you're painting a wildflower meadow, it already starts to look like bits and pieces of weeds and things, that all those kind of great little things that are growing in the grasses. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those alone.
Did you have any trouble with it clogging?
No.
Susan wants to know.
No, I don't think I've ever had any trouble with it clogging, to my knowledge, that I can recall. But I never spray a painting like a final fixative spray. And you can see it darkened it, it dulled it. You have the chance of it not coming out the right way. So I never do that. But I do use it as a tool for my layering, because you can see what's happening now where I'm going over the area where I sprayed. The fixative is making the what's underneath stay dark, and it kind of gives this illusion of texture in the grasses without me actually painting a lot of different blades of grass. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my, these are the Russian pastels that I've blogged about, and they're just harder, but I like to use them to do the grasses. So I'm going to come in here and using some of these to make my grass mark. Now I use other pastels to make grass, but these are what I happen to have handy today, so I'm going to use them. And I'm just going back over all this grassy area and kind of just letting the pastel dance and create some of those nice bits and pieces of grass. The way that it comes up over and into the sky, I could actually, I'm feeling like I should have one a little bit, maybe one needs to go right here. So I need to have a taller guy right in there, and then I'll give him a stem. And then I like this set because I have a variety of colors in here, so I can kind of go in and play with the different colors and make a really nice, beautiful selection of grasses rather than just using one or two. So it's a lot of fun to go in and one thing I try to remind myself is I don't want all the grasses going in the same direction. So if it's windy, you know, which way is the wind going? Or if it's not, there's always going to be a rogue piece of grass that's going to, you know, go out the other way. Because if you have everything like this, it's going to look like a fence. So you really want to work at making it look believable and natural. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just having fun playing with it. Now, I've got this empty space right here that's somehow developed, and I'm not particularly happy with that, so I'm going to spray it so that I can come back and see what I can do to that area. So it may need a couple little flowers that are going to get buried just to break up that empty space, and then I can come back over it with a little bit more of the grasses. Let's try this one. So that does a little bit better. It breaks up the space a little bit better. It was a little bit empty. And then I think I'm going to add a little bit of light to some of these Queen Anne's lace right in here. Not all of them, but just a few that are in the center. And one of the things when I do these wildflower paintings where there's just a bunch of grasses and things all over the place, it really requires some time. Oh, that one just broke. It really requires some time to just sit with it, you know, leave it alone, and then come back to it and decide where I need more work or where it needs less work. Sometimes it's not a matter of what you put in, it's what you need to take away. A lot of times you get carried a lot of times I get carried away, and I put in too many grasses and too many bits and pieces of things, and it gets too busy. And then I need to actually brush off areas and simplify things. So, but I can't tell that until I take a break. So I won't actually get to finish this because I won't know what it's looking like until I can step away from it. And I think one of the last things I'm going to do before I stop so I can give it a break is I'm going to, I've got it right here, I want to give a little bit of the thistles. We know how they are in real life. They're kind of hairy, right? So I want to show this effect. So I'm using the edge of that Derwent Inktense stick. I could have easily used the new pastel too. I've got some new pastels over here, and it does the same thing. And I'm going to just draw in some of those fuzzy, hairy bits that we know are on a thistle. And I don't need to do it on every single thistle. And the reason why is because our brains will fill in the details. So I don't have to show it on every single one. And we can look at it and say, oh, that's a thistle, so that means all of those pink ones are probably thistles. Another thing we can do is take a pin and go in and scratch. It's kind of like scratch art. And if the pastel is on thick enough, you can kind of remove some of the pastel and get that, you can see it on this one here, you can get that hairy effect by going back into it. Now, let's see, it kind of goes out this way, a little unruly, so I'll just make a few of them unruly and then that'll be that. Alright, and then I'm going to take this purple and make a few bolder purple marks. I'm going to do one more thing on this one. I feel like this scene would be the perfect candidate for a couple of bumblebees. So bumblebees are easy. I've got a little photo here just to guide me, but I'm going to take the Terry Ludwig eggplant and I'm going to make 3 little marks. There's one guy there. Let's have one guy coming in to fly in. So we're going to make 3 little black marks. And where else could we have one? Should we have one right here on this flower right here? Like that. And now I need some yellow. I'll go ahead and make a yellow mark. What are you laughing at?
Awesome. Let's see, make them all, paint them all.
So we got a little yellow mark.
Susan.
And I like to do a little bit of cool yellow on there as well. So that's a nice warm yellow. Add a little bit of cool yellow to him. And then they need wings, so I'm going to take, let's see, this might work. No, I didn't plan to do the bumblebee. So I don't have everything. So this is a very pale blue, blue-gray, like that. And he's at rest, so his wings are like that. And this guy needs little legs. I'm going to come in here with the little dark blue and make some legs on him. And he could stand to have his head a little bit more. I lost his head. There. So now we've got some bees. I think helps complete the meadow. And I'll look at it. I probably might address some of these grasses. I think I need a little bit of brighter pieces. But I want to step away from it and see what else needs to be done before I finish it off. So you always want to work slow or work fast. I start off slow, and then I work fast, and then I slow down to make those finishing marks. So I'll do that, and I'll post it on my blog today. And I thank you for, yes, happy Mother's Day, everyone, again, and thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. And Heidi says goodbye.